Oh yeah, it says meeting is now streaming live.
Ahislathla and chat isquis chastenma and chas buus talichast. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Native Wellness Institute Power Hour, where shift happens. A lot more could be happening today on our Power Hour with my special guests that I have. I'm super excited today to bring you this Power Hour. Today we are going to be talking about what it feels like to be a light-skinned enrolled tribal member and a dark-skinned enrolled tribal member are in Dawn's case, where she was a full-blooded Indian but wasn't able to get enrolled in a tribe for a very long time. She went most of her life not being enrolled. And so we're just going to talk about that today. And it's an issue that we hear all across Indian country. There's a lot of lateral oppression that takes place because of the color of our skin from our own people. A lot of our people are called Apple Indians, or they're called, all kinds of different names because of the color of their skin. And a lot of our people will just judge right off the bat. It doesn't matter, who you are or what family you come from. It's just, we even have family members in some of our tribes who have one child might have very dark skin and another child may be very light skinned, but they have the same mom and dad. And so today's Power Hour is going to be about how can we navigate through that lateral oppression? How can we address these issues in our communities? And we're going to hear from two very special guests today. Kim and Dawn are going to share with you. So I would like to start off and just hand it right over to Kim so she can do an introduction. Limlemsh.
Thank you, LoVina. My name's Kim Just Johnson. I'm enrolled at Fort Belknap, Montana. My husband is Walker River Paiute, so I live down in Schurz, Nevada. I grew up though in Busby, Montana on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, and lived out in Portland for a while. And I have three beautiful children, a 33-year-old and two teenagers now. So life is getting interesting of teenagers. But yeah, that's who I am. That's all I got.
All right. Dawn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, sister. My name is Dawn Arkinson Red Cloud. I am an enrolled tribal member with the Chippewa Cree tribe of Rocky Boy, Montana. I'm also part Blackfeet. And on my biological father's side, he is from Fort Peck, Montana. And I don't really understand my lineage there yet. And I currently live in Rapid City, South Dakota, where I'm married to my husband, who is from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. He is Oglala Lakota. And we're a blended family. He and I don't have any children together. Excuse me. I do have 7 children of my own. 5 of them are grown. Well, 5 of them are adults. And I have my twin boys who are 16. They're still, of course, not adults yet. And then I also have 3 stepchildren. My second oldest daughter just gave birth on Christmas Eve day to my very first grandchild. So I'm absolutely loving being a grandma. I never knew it was going to feel this way. And it's one of the greatest things that's happened to me.
Oh, congratulations, Dawn. That is so awesome. And, of course, my dad said to let you know he sends his love. And my mom and dad, Dawn used to live with us a long, long time ago back in Nispelum. And so I only really got to know Tashina and, when she was just a little girl. So so this is great. I'm so happy to have you guys on today. And so Kim, first of all, I wanted to start with you and just ask you, what was it like growing up and being light-skinned? Did you have issues, and what were those issues if you did have issues?
Yeah, You know, the earliest kind of memory I have is me and my brother got shipped off to boarding school. I was only in 4th grade over into Wapato, North Dakota. And that's really my first memory of, it was all Indian boarding school and we were the whitest kids there. And I say to this day, that's where I learned to survive. I literally had to fight kids. Here I am, 4th grade kid, you know, and because we were white, they, you know, the very first day, the kids were trying to steal my clothes. And literally every day we had to fight for our lives that we were there. And I remember, you know, watching my brother across the courtyard getting beat up sometimes. So it was never easy.
Wow. And then did it just continue after you left boarding school? Was it just
No, well, when we moved, after we got back from boarding school, that's when we moved down to the Northern Cheyenne. My mom married a Cheyenne, and it was kind of rough there for a little while. But I guess because I've always been a fighter, you know, once people realized that I wasn't gonna take anybody's crap, then I guess I earned respect. I don't know, but and I had some good friends, you know, people there too. So, but there was always times when, you know, there was always somebody that wanted to fight me just because I was the white girl amongst all the skins, you know. So yeah, and sometimes even today, you know, I still see it. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Kim, for sharing that, because you know that I could feel that from your heart. That must have been some really hard times for you and your brother. Um, so Dawn, now I wanted to ask you, you know, I know when I first met you, it was really hard to believe that you were a full-blooded Indian, but you weren't enrolled. And so, you know, how did you deal with that? Growing up and wanting to, you know, well, obviously you were Indian, but you know, how did you deal with that?
Um, you know, I don't know. I guess because when you're a kid, like you don't even really understand, right? Like you don't understand the difference of being enrolled and not enrolled. Um, and for the first 12 years of my childhood, we grew up a lot in Canada. And so like there was no IHS or anything like that I guess to deny me any services or anything like that. But as a descendant, because at that time my mother was enrolled with the Blackfeet tribe in Browning. And so of course, whenever you know she needed to take us to IHS or whatever, then I could get services as a descendant. It wasn't really until I got older is when I really when it kind of started to, I guess, affect me, because there are benefits, right, that go along with being an enrolled tribal member. I mean, you get the IHS healthcare, you get, I mean, there's scholarships. I mean, if you want to go to school, there are scholarships that you qualify for if you're an enrolled member of a tribe. Or there's, I remember one time back in, I believe it was 1999, I went to a powwow in California, San Jacinto, California. It was one of I think it was the Saboba powwow. It was one of those great big ones, you know. Well, they were, you had to show your tribal ID card in order to get registered to dance. And I, you know, LoVina, you know that I danced all my life. I powwow danced, and I never had to prove how Indian I was to be able to participate in a powwow. But at this powwow I had to. And I was traveling with a friend of mine who's from Canada, and she had her status card, and I actually registered under her name just so I could dance at that powwow. I mean, of course I would have been able to dance, right? But I just wouldn't have been able to get the number. And in case I won, which I didn't, then I would have had to prove how Indian I was to be able to collect a prize. And so maybe it was a good thing I didn't win, because then, you know, maybe it would have been a big thing if I would have been like, oh, well, da 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 da, you know. But yeah, so things like that, like not being able to receive like certain kind of incentives for being an enrolled tribal member. And it wasn't until around, I want to say somewhere between 2000 and 2002 is when I actually was able to get enrolled. My mother, so it's kind of an interesting story of why I was never able to get enrolled. So on my father's side, who, like I said, is from Fort Peck, Montana, he was, because of the blood quantum, he was like just enough to be enrolled his own self within his tribe. And then on my mother's side, she was enrolled Blackfeet. And she was, at that time, she was enrolled as a quarter Blackfeet. And but there's a little bit of history there that it really kind of just makes the blood quantum situation doesn't make sense, right? Because so my mother's grandmother was a full-blooded Blackfeet Indian, but she was raised on the Blood Reserve in Canada. And so when she was raised, so being raised on the Blood Reserve at that time is when they started doing enrollments. And so since she was being raised on the Blood Reserve, even though she was full-blood Blackfeet, she got enrolled as a Blood Indian. So then turn around, and then when my grandmother, my mother's mother, was born, that her blood quantum became that she was half blood and half Blackfeet, because my great grandfather was full blood Blackfeet, right? So my great grandmother rightfully was full blood Blackfeet, but was enrolled as a full blood Indian on the Blood Reserve in Alberta. So then when they had my grandmother then became half blood and half Blackfeet. And then when my mother was born, my mother's father was Chippewa Cree from Rocky Boy, Montana. And then my grandmother was considered to be half blood and half Blackfeet. So then that makes my mother's blood quantum drop down to just a quarter Blackfeet, when rightfully she should have been half. And then I would have been able to get enrolled. But because of all the blood quantum and how it trickles down is why I was never able to get enrolled. So like on my father's side, because my father, my biological father, he's Sioux, Assiniboine, Gros-Ventre, and Hopi. So that's 4 tribes right there, right? And then 4 tribes from my mom's side. So that makes me 8 tribes.
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm an 8th of 8 tribes, but I can't get enrolled. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, look at me. Like, you know, I mean, unless I live in a highly populated Hispanic area, most people look at me and they automatically know that I'm an Indian. But so right around somewhere in the early 2000s, my mom, and it's probably one of the biggest sacrifices and biggest kind of favors that she did for me, was she relinquished her rights as a Blackfeet Indian to enroll herself with the Chippewa Cree tribe in Rocky Boy, where she was able to get enrolled as 4/4. And so then it made my blood quantum a half. And then it made my daughter, Tashina, she was able to also get enrolled as a quarter. And then my other 6 kids were their father is Southern Cheyenne Arapaho, and they have basically just enough to be enrolled also. And now with my grandson that is here now, I don't think that he's got enough of any one blood quantum to be enrolled anywhere. And so the disadvantages I believe that I had faced prior to my getting enrolled were those benefits that I talked about, like with the scholarships. And then if I want to dance at this powwow where I have to prove that I'm an enrolled member, you know, and then with IHS services and things like that, like there's a lot of opportunities available for Indian people if you can prove that you're Indian. And so, but the plus side to all of that is I never depended on those opportunities, right? And in my younger years, I always had to find a way to kind of make it on my own without, because my tribe, and a lot of people's tribes, they give out higher ed. They give out the higher ed scholarships. And when I was first trying to go to school in Oklahoma, I wasn't afforded that opportunity. I wasn't afforded the opportunity to be able to apply for higher ed. And so I had to kind of figure it out on my own. You know, I had to take out loans, and which I like
Well,
seriously
you're just
owe
like you're
now.
like a regular American. Like there's
Yeah.
yeah, like you have no like there's no benefit to being enrolled, and so you have to just, you know, you have to find a way. And there's, you know, like and honestly I don't even really know how many scholarships they offer for people who are descendants, you know, like but in anything you have to be able to prove, you
Yep.
know, your bloodline. It's like, you know, we're one of the only races in the world who track our bloodlines, who have like dogs have pedigree charts. You know, we have, you know, we have to track all of our great grandparents, and that doesn't even, you know, go into the you know, those who were adopted out, are stolen, are, you know,
Yep.
taken away from their reservations and not knowing who they are, or who, you know, which is a lot of the kids that I met at Haskell, you know, that they didn't even know who they were. So, you know, it's such a huge issue. Enrollment across the United States, I don't know about Canada, I'm pretty sure it's probably the same in Canada, but enrollment is such a huge issue. And you know, but you know, the you know, like one thing that I wanted to ask you, Kim, was, you know, were there benefits to being light skinned? Like, did you see the benefit of it because you were lighter skinned?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, in some situations it does. It did. Well, it does. I mean, um, because, you know, even in today, even though I live on the res, there's people that I encounter that don't realize that I'm Native, and so it's, you know, they think, oh, okay, she's one of us. It's everything's gonna be cool, but until I start speaking about something, then they're like, I've had people look at me, oh, you're one of those. So yeah, there can be advantages, but to get things, I guess, yeah. Um, but it shouldn't have to be like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it shouldn't. And you know, and so the other, you know, the other thing I wanted to talk about is, as you became an adult, as you know, grew up, you know, what kind of issues did you face as, you know, as being an enrolled tribal member, but you know, but having grown up with, you know, like I was talking before, I mean, um I just know, like, growing up on our reservation, you know, it's the anger or the prejudice against our own people for
Mhm.
being a certain color is just so hard to deal with. And the hard part about it is you can't change the color of your skin.
Exactly,
You
exactly.
can't choose to be that. None of us choose that, right?
Nope.
So So what were the things that you did, Kim, to help you to deal with all of this, this prejudice and this lateral oppression? Like, what did you do? How did you deal with that?
I think for me, just being true to myself, and well, you really have to stand up for yourself. And I hate to say I had to prove myself, but in some situations I did. Um, that one's a hard one to answer, but I was always in survival mode. So I just, I did whatever I had to. Does that make sense? Um, there were situations that, uh, got where there was an ugliness to it, but I knew that I just had to keep going on. I couldn't let that tear me apart. I'm grateful that I grew up on the res, because I think that it made me a tougher person, and to know what my dark skinned relatives have to deal with, because and I see it still today when me and my husband, he's dark, and when we're places, how he gets treated. And then I come walking up and you can totally see these white people are like, whoa, what do we got going on here? And their tone changes. So you're on.
So how does it change? Like, so what is the feeling that you get?
There's something that sticks out in my mind. Actually, just happened last summer. Me and my husband were in Billings, Montana, and we were in a hardware store, and he was wanting to get some tools, because we don't have to, out here in Nevada, we have to pay a tax on everything. And so let's go buy this stuff. And it was expensive stuff. And I was off, looking around at things. And so I went back over to where he was at. And this woman that was helping him, I was standing back a ways, and I could just hear in her whole tone, her body language, she didn't want to help him. And I just knew right off, oh gosh, we're dealing with a racist one here. And so of course I'm like I said before, I say whatever's on my mind, and I drop the F-bomb every once in a while, and I let it loose. And I just kind of let her have it. I said, why can't you get that out of, help him, and we want that. And it was like, she got kind of flustered, I think. And then another woman had to come step in, and she was really nice to us and courteous. But the other lady, you could totally tell she didn't want to help my husband, and because he's Native. I mean, it was very apparent. Even my kids could tell.
Wow. So with your kids, what did your kids, are they darker, lighter?
They're darker than I am, but they're not real dark either. I call them my cinnamon bears. But my kids were mad, and they're like me. They'll say what's ever on their mind, and so it kind of, I had to tell them, hey, shh, you guys be quiet, But they could see it.
Yeah.
And but the sad part is they even experience it too, because they've kids, and I work in elementary school. And so we, 97% Native population here. And there were kids that would kind of torture my kids, because they would call them white kids, because they would think, they'd see me, their mom, working here. Oh, you guys are white kids, you're not Native. So I, have to tell them things, but they're pretty good
Kim,
about it.
what do you tell them? How do you help them?
I tell them to be themselves. They know who they are. They know where they come from, and they know who their relatives are. And well, the sad part is some of those kids were kind of distant relatives, and I just remind them that those other kids say hurtful things because that's what they're learning. I said, you can't base who a person is on what their skin color is. And so they're, you know, that's what I would tell them, you know, look at who they are, you know, and the sad part was some of these kids weren't any darker than they were. But
Mhm.
just because they see me as their mother, they're thinking, you know, they didn't know that the kids didn't know that I was Native. They don't know who my family is. So I always just tell them, just be true to yourself. You know who you are and don't let that stuff get to you.
Mhm.
And they've been pretty good, you know, they're pretty strong about that.
That's awesome, Kim, that, you know, because I know that it is our kids, you know, it's us, you know, the challenges that we've gone through, but it also happens to our children,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
they have to go through that. So Dawn, do you have any experiences that you want to share about, you know, maybe how, if you felt that being darker skinned and not even having to do with enrollment, but just because of the color of your skin, are there things that you've had to deal with, or your children have had to deal with because of that? And you live in Rapid City right now, where, you know, that's
Yeah.
intense. That's an intense place to live. You know, there's a lot of racism and hate, and, you know, and so what are some of the things that you can share about that?
Well, so yeah, I mean, there's Rapid City. I don't know if anybody else knows this, but apparently Rapid City is known nationwide. Its nickname is Racist City. And I'm thankful that I work for an organization where it's predominantly I mean, we work with tribes, so I mean, we're predominantly Native American that work in this organization, and I'm thankful for that. So of course I don't ever experience anything there as far as like racism or anything like that. You know, and I don't honestly, I can't honestly say on a personal level that I experienced blatant racism directed right at me. The one time that I realized how prominent racism is here in Rapid City is that I was at a protest for the Hispanic children who are being held in the cages down by the border, and I was at a protest for that. And I remember this one person driving by who looked white, and she was driving by and she told me to go back to where I came from. I don't know where it is that she thought I came from, but she told me to go back to where I came from. And I said, you know, I'm home. You go back to where you came from. I mean, we kind of got into it, and she was like, oh, I'm Native. And I said, oh, really? Because you don't look like you're Native. but you know, it was kind of like she thought I was not Native apparently, and told me to go back to wherever it is that I came from. And so that is the only direct type of stuff that I've experienced since I've lived here in Rapid City. But I know it's here, like you can feel it, you know. I've never experienced the being followed around in Walmart or anything like that, or or not getting good service. But I know it's here, and I know that people experience it. And I don't know if it's maybe that I'm not looking for it, and I don't consider whatever behavior somebody is directing towards me. um I don't consider it as a racist behavior. But I notice a lot more is white privilege. I notice that, and the arrogance and the entitlement that is expressed because of it. And those things bother me, you know. And so I walk around like I have brown privilege, you know, like just because you're white doesn't mean that I can't be afforded the same service that you're getting. And I if I need to, I'll demand it. I'll demand it. If it's because of the color of my skin, that you don't want to treat me the same way you treated that white lady, then, you know, that's not fair. And I want you to outright tell me if it's because of the color of my skin. Like, I just, it's not something that myself or a lot of people here in Rapid City that I know, like, refuse to tolerate that behavior anymore. And then I did want to add the one thing that, you know, growing up not enrolled, is that I never really felt at home anywhere. So like, I didn't grow up completely on the Blackfeet Reservation, and I didn't grow up in Rocky Boy. I spent some time on the Blackfeet Reservation and I spent some time in Rocky Boy, but I didn't necessarily grow up in either one of those places. We grew up kind of all over, you know, the whole dysfunctional family thing where it was like, oh, if it didn't work out here, then we'll just move to the next place, right? And but I never had that one thing to say, well, this is where I'm from and this is who I am. And so and you know, somebody would say, well, what tribe are you? Well, I'm Blackfeet blood, Chippewa, Cree, Sioux, Assiniboine, Gros Ventre, Hopi. You know, and it was like, but which one are you? Which one? Where are you from? You know, I never had that until I got enrolled. And then when I got enrolled, I felt like I had a sense of, I know where I'm from. You know, even though I've always had that connection with the Blackfeet tribe, because that's where my mom grew up, right? I mean, up until she was orphaned at 11 years old, she grew up on the Blackfeet Reservation. And so that was kind of the connection that I had, but I still wasn't really from there because I wasn't enrolled. And then since I got enrolled in Rocky Boy, I that's where I've kind of really tried to learn more about my history and my culture there. And that's what I follow, and that's what I teach my children on my side, as I teach them of what I know, what the very little that I know about my Cree culture is what I teach my children. And so did that answer your question? I kind of went all around and around it with that.
I think you answered it, Dawn. I think that was
Okay.
yeah, definitely. And so I'm watching the comments as we're on here, and I just want to go back to Kim. Somebody asked, do the native educators and the non-native educators in your school, are they treated differently?
The native say that again.
Are the native educators treated differently from the non-native educators?
Yes. Yes, I've seen that. I've been at this school for 6 years, and 2 years ago we changed. I've had 3 principals being here, and 2 years ago our principal that came in is actually native, and he grew up here. He was a student, you know, left, went away, went to school. He was a teacher and everything. And since he's been back, his goal is to bring in native teachers. And we now have 2 native teachers on staff. And so, but before that, this school, we had to fight for everything we ever needed within this school district. Our district office is 35 miles away, and they have an elementary school there, and then we have ours here in Schurz. And within 6 months of being here, I've seen how our school was treated like the stepchild. And I think it's because of our native population. It totally is. And at that time, the only native staff were the classified staff, you know, the cooks, the janitors, our librarian and stuff. We had no native teachers. And I had told the principal that was here at that time, I said, you guys really need some cultural competency training here. You have no idea how to work with native students or families. I mean, it was probably apparent the first 2 months I was here. And so I'm so thankful now that our principal is here, because it has made it a heck of a big difference. I mean, he really fights for our school, that we get the same as with the other elementary school in our district, because it was not fair. And they still try to come after we're a little school, we only have 72 students, but it's like the good old boys club down there doesn't think our kids deserve the same as the students in the district where the district office is at. I mean, it's really apparent. So our there was a big difference in how they treated our Native scholars.
Mm-hmm. And and we were fortunate as the Native Wellness Institute that we worked with the Quilceda School, and I see that Z is on here. But we were able, as the Native Wellness Institute, to come in and to do a lot of training for the administration on historical and generational trauma. And we were able to work with, we created different groups for the Native teachers and the teachers of color, and
Mm-hmm.
the non-white teachers, are the white teachers. And we were able to do so much healing work
Yeah.
in that, and bringing together and bringing, especially when you have white teachers who work with primarily an all Native school, like
Right.
they have to have some kind of understanding of the young people that they work with, and the young people and where they come from,
Exactly.
and what it means, to be a Native American, what it means to be tribal and come from a tribal community, and so that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you as well is, what does it mean to be Native American, to be an enrolled member of your tribe? What does that mean to you?
For me, it really is all of a sense of belonging. It really and my family, my extended family, because living on the Northern Cheyenne, I consider that home, because that's where I grew up. So just that sense of knowing if I had to have somewhere to go home to, and being accepted. And but for me, it's just I always tell my kids, we're so it's not about money. We have so much to be thankful for, our culture. My kids are learning I never have had the chance to learn our native language, but my kids are learning Paiute, and it makes me so happy, because it really is about belonging, and that sense of home, because I have non-native friends, and they always say, you're so lucky. You guys are so rich in your culture and knowing who you are. So for me, that's kind of, did I answer that? I'm starting to digress too. but yeah, just knowing that I have all my ancestors behind me, all my relatives. That to me is, the most important.
Yeah. Well, and definitely, that's my feeling, when I think about what does it mean to me, to be Shishtichuam, Shnimipu, and Silkshin Snikes.
Mm-hmm.
To me too, it's like, I can start this and say, Ahis Latlan Cha Isquis Chastenman, Chaspa Tali Chast. Just being able to say that, those few words of
Mm-hmm.
my indigenous language, of my people, and that was almost completely wiped out, our language.
Mm-hmm.
And so my connection to my ancestors is trying to learn our language as much as I can. When I go into the sweat lodge with my mom and my sisters and my daughter and my granddaughters, when we go into that sweat lodge and we pray for our people and we ask Creator Kulin Suin Hamatkin, help our people. We come into that sweat lodge and we pray together as a family. We pray together, and my connection is to be home, is is my mom and dad. My mom and dad are my world, you know, and they raised me to be the young woman that I am, or, you know, like I'm not even young no more. Actually, I'm getting old. I have grandkids, you know, but you know, but it's that, you know, like, you know, it doesn't matter what color my skin is. And, you know, and that's something that came to me a long time ago, you know, is that, you know, regardless of what color we are, even white people, black people, you know, Chinese, Japanese, Aboriginals, Maoris, underneath our skin, we all bleed red blood. We all have a mom and dad. We all have children, or even if we don't have children, we have what we consider to be family.
Yep.
And we love, and we only want to be loved.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
that's all we want. We, from the time that we're born, we just want to be loved and not judged
Exactly.
by the color of our skin. I mean, you know, yesterday or the other day, you know, when we heard, you know, that young woman speak as, you know, a new president came into this nation, as she stood there and said, you know, there's light in this shade. Be the light. We have to change our mindsets so
Yep.
that we can love one another and embrace one another and
Exactly.
stop judging each other. You know, and I felt that from deep within me when she spoke. You know, I felt like I went back to that moment when Creator, when he, when the light shined, when that sperm entered the egg and that light shined, and that created me. And that was a moment of love. And irregardless, you know, he intended me to be here. And so we only have this one chance. And we have to make it the best that we can. We have to do good every day. You know, and that's what my dad taught us. My mom taught us, you know, pray to the water, ask the water, cleanse my heart and my mind and my spirit, and let me be a good person today. You know, that's being who we are. That's being human beings, you know, to just love one another.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so what is it to you, Dawn? What does that mean to you?
So, yeah, I agree. You know, I absolutely agree that, you know, we need to stop judging each other for the colors of our skin. Um, and and I see it. I see it too. You know, I mean, like I like even on Facebook, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a gentleman who posted on one of the Facebook groups, and he was in a dancing position or something like that, and he was a light-skinned person. And there was a lot of comments about him, like not being native and things like that, and stealing our culture, or I don't know. And then I saw a lot of other kind of counter posts regarding that, you know. And I think that that's what's separating us, right? Like the blood quantum and the color of our skin, you know, it's separating all of us as Indigenous people. You know, we're in a time right now that we need to come together, and we need to stick together, and we need to support each other. We're going through a really, really hard time right now in this world, you know, with the pandemic, and a lot of us are not doing very well. A lot of our people are not doing well. I mean, they weren't doing well before, but they're not doing well even more now in this pandemic. And so now's the time that we need to stop hating on each other because of the color of our skin or because of where we're from. My God, you know, I mean, that's one of the things that bothers me so much, is just because I'm from where I'm from, like I'm not good enough to be over here, you know, or just because you come from where you come from, you think that your tribe is better than my tribe. You know, I mean, like, what is that? You know, I mean, that's not even, our people weren't like that. I just firmly believe that a long time ago, before the Europeans came to this continent, I truly believe that our indigenous people got along with each other. I don't believe that our people fought each other the way that they portray. You know, yeah, maybe after white contact and, you know, the influences there and all that kind of stuff, our people were caused to fight each other. There was a cause of separation. And by us continuing to be that way, we're still just feeding into that colonized way of thinking, you know. And then even that, you know, people say, oh, decolonize, 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 but then they're saying to you, well, you know, you need to decolonize yourself, but because you're still doing this, then you're not decolonizing, and I'm more decolonized than, like, it's a competition now. What is up with that? You know, first of all, let's start by being kind to each other. Let's start by embracing each other and saying, you know what, you're from this tribe and your tribe has a lot of really good, there's a lot of really good things about your tribe. You know, I mean, like, living here amongst the Lakota people, okay, I'm going to tell you guys something. A long time ago, before I ever met my husband, I used to say, when I was with my kids' father, I used to say, you know, oh, if we ever split up, there is no way ever I'm ever going to be with a Sioux. And here I am. And then also come to realize that they don't necessarily like being called Sioux, right? They prefer Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, which, I mean, you know, and so I respectfully, when I refer to my husband, I refer to him as a Lakota person, and where I live is Lakota territory. And and living here amongst the Lakota people, um, having has said what I said so many years ago, I've come to appreciate their culture, and I've come to appreciate their language and their history. I mean, I've learned like so much since I've been here. You know, do you think anybody is cared to really learn anything about me or my people? You know, of course, my husband, but even him, like, there's certain beliefs that we have about certain things that we do in our home, right? And he's gotten to the point now where he respects that and he goes along with me, but I don't even know if he really understands why. But I'm the kind of person, I'm like, well, why do you do that? You know, what's the meaning behind that? What's the story behind that? What's going to happen if you don't? You know what I mean? So I feel like I feel, in so many ways, I feel humbled while I'm living here amongst the Lakota people, because you know, and like the conversation that we had last night, LoVina, about where I am, and like, I'm not trying to, you know, kind of like take over while I'm here. You know, there's so many wonderful people here that are doing the work, right? They're doing so much work. They're doing so much good work. And I do my best to be a supportive in-law or a supportive relative. And but I'm not trying to, you know, say, well, this is the way my people do it, and we do it better because, you know, I'm from Rocky Boy, Montana, or I'm Blackfeet and this is why we do it better, you know. And I hear a lot of that, and it's so heartbreaking. Like, you know, like where Kim's from, you know, I'm sure that the Paiutes have a lot of really rich history and really rich culture, that it's no better than anybody else's, but it's no less either, you know. And I know that where LoVina comes from, I know that you guys have, I lived there and I saw it and I got to be a part of it. I was welcomed, you know. And so and it's no better and it's no less than anybody else's. And so I think that that goes all along with the the light skinned, the dark skinned, the enrolled, the not enrolled, the this tribe or that tribe, you know, like we're in a time right now where we really need to be supporting each other and lifting each other up and embracing each other. You know, I mean, oh, I could go on forever because there's so many other things that go along with that. You know, the kid that gets left behind because their parents are out drinking, you know, I mean, couldn't we embrace that child and say, here, let me love you? You know, I'll hug you, I'll comfort you or whatever. Instead it's, oh well, that one gets left by her parents, so nobody else is going to want to bother with that person. You know what I mean? Like what are we doing? What are we doing for that? You know, are we welcoming these children and saying, you know, you're okay, you know, it's not your fault.
Well, and I think that's all we can do is we can start with ourselves. Everyone watching, everyone listening, you know, it starts with you. It starts with me. And that's how we start is we have to let go of our own judgments against people. We have to let go of our own, you know, prejudice against each other, and we have
Mhm.
to uplift each other. So, you know, we have 8 more minutes. So Kim, is there any last things you want to share before we end our power hour?
Um, no, I mean, I think we hit on, nothing's coming to mind, but I'm just being true to yourself. I mean, for me, I mean, I just, it used to kind of bother me, uh, you know, because I know I'd go when I worked for like NICWA, I would have, you know, I do a lot of phone conversations with people, and okay, I'll meet, you know, when we'd go to meetings or whatever. And when I'd walk up to them and introduce myself, well, I'm Kim. And they used to crack me up because I could see it on their face. You're not who I thought you were going to be. You know, I said, yeah, I know I should have told you I was a blondie or, you know, a white, but I just, you know, just be true to yourself. And I just say, let it roll off your back as best you can. Sometimes it's not easy. Well, it's not. But yeah, it is what it is. That's what I always say.
I was just gonna say that it is what it is. You took
Yep.
the words right out. Like I was just thinking, it is what it is, and you know, honestly, it's just that having that ability to look at one another, you know, and look at the people who are hurting us and who are saying
Yeah.
horrible things to us, whether we're white skinned or whether we're dark skinned or whether, you know, whatever our skin color is. But the people who are attacking us, to be able to look at them through our trauma lens
Yep.
and understand that they are coming from a place of trauma. They
Yeah.
have to attack and hurt us because of
Yeah.
their own hurt.
Yep.
And
And that's what I've had to tell my kids. You got to take a look at the life those kids are living. You know,
Mhm.
they may not have a mom and dad at home, and they see you guys with both parents, you know, and so that's one of the things, you know, just you got to remember where they're coming from, or what, you know, think
Exactly.
about what they could be dealing with.
Yep. And that's exactly what I just told my daughter, you know. I mean, you have no idea what your friends are going through. You
Exactly.
have a mom and dad that love you
Yep.
unconditionally. We will be there in a heartbeat. But some of your friends don't have that.
Yep.
Some of our
Yep.
children don't have that person that's going to be there. And sometimes we just have to be that person. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
we have
Yeah.
to be that person for those kids and, you know, for our future. And so, you know, and we never know how much our love can impact that child's life
Yep.
into the future. And so,
Exactly.
you know, that's what it takes. So, um, so Dawn, do you have any last things that you want to offer before we end our power hour?
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo those thoughts about teaching our kids, you know, about what other kids might be going through. I know that there've been my 18-year-old daughter. There have been several times when she would say, "Oh, this is what's happening at school," and da 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 da, and this person and that person or whatever. And I would tell her, you know, my girl, I said, with every person that you come in contact with, you have to come to them with upfront forgiveness and upfront unconditional understanding for them, because you don't know what they're going through at home. You don't know if they're being, raped, molested, if they're being abandoned, if they're being made to, do things that children shouldn't be doing. I mean, because we all have those kinds of backgrounds, right? I mean, I know I sure do. And I had a hard time, in life, and not understanding why these things are happening to me. And sometimes these children, when those things are happening to them, they take it and then they project it, oh, well, this one has got, a better pair of shoes than me, so I'm going to pick on her, or whatever, or that one has those nice new earbuds that I've been wanting, so I'm going to pick on that person, or whatever. So I try to tell my kids, you really have to try to be understanding that not everybody has it as good as you might have it, or as good as they think you have it, because things aren't perfect. Things are not perfect. I mean, we make do and make the best out of whatever we have, right? And for me, with my children, it's trying to be the best mom that I can be to them, considering my trauma, and my abandonment issues, and my not really having. I mean, my mom was great. I mean, I loved her. She was my world when she was alive, and she did the best she could with what she had, which was not a lot. So just trying to be the best that I can be for my kids with what I have, which isn't a whole lot. So, but some other kids don't, they don't even have that.
Yeah.
So, I just echo those same thoughts, about trying to just be kind of overlook it for them, and then even overlook it for our non-Indigenous um, counterparts who don't understand us as a people. They don't understand our history. And some of them may not even take the time to try to understand our people or our history and where we're coming from. Overlook it for them so that we can live in peace within ourselves and within our homes and our families.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, it's just been an incredible hour sharing with you, and I just want you both to know that you're powerful in your own right, and you're beautiful, and you're amazing. And we as Native women, we have to continue on this path of being who we are and loving who we are and embracing, and just being proud to be who we are. Even if it means every morning we get up and we say, I love you, LoVina. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're strong. You're a good person. Because that was I think one of the hardest things. Last night I was on the phone with Dawn, and I haven't talked to her in a long time, but to hear her say, sometimes I don't feel like I'm worthy to put myself out there, that people won't listen. We will listen. And you have something to say. And you are unbelievably strong. And you have a message, and it's just like when our creator speaks to us, he pushes us, like he tells us, and sometimes we don't listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't listen, but he has a path for us, but we have to be quiet enough to hear it, and we have to be brave enough to do it.
Yep.
We have to be courageous and fearless, all of us, and so that's the message. That's what I want to leave with my brothers and sisters today. And to just today, hug someone, with your mask and all that, or even if it's just your family member, but hug them for 10 seconds, because that is love, and that is support, And the last thing I wanted to just say is I seen my sister Paige is watching, my little sister, and she made me these beautiful earrings. And I want to give her a shout out. Paige Priest. She, I mean, I talk to her and I help her and I love her, and I love you guys. And thank you so much. Lim Lim Shinchaspu'us Telichast for joining us today. And I pray that you will have a wonderful weekend. Go out and take ownership, and like Bernie, wherever he is. Go Bernie.
Thank you.
All right, love you guys.
Love you
Love
too.
you,
Take care.
sister.
Thanks for joining the Power Hour, everybody. White Lim Lim.